So where a company has been involved in hydraulic fracturing for decades, for like a Halliburton, for example, also then is uniquely able to work in geothermal. That technology is very similar.
Yes.
A lot of these companies have been involved in these kinds of things for a long time. A rig manufacturer like NOV is uniquely suited to help develop elements and pieces for offshore wind.
And, COVID has brought energy transition into focus, into the forefront, as more and more companies, for many reasons, right? Activists and investor pressure, but energy transition is now at the forefront. So for someone who has heard about energy transition, but doesn't still quite understand what it is, how would you describe the scope of energy transition?
I would describe it to someone as a shift that this industry is making, where it is very focused on its environmental footprint. Yeah. We have always, in traditional hydrocarbon development, been focused on trying to keep a smaller environmental footprint, always trying to have reduced emissions. But now with energy transition, there is even more focus on that. And the energy industry is really focused on trying to develop emerging technologies to get us to lower carbon. And so when we talk about what energy transition means to the energy services sector, it all gets back to technology. These companies are the ones that have been developing energy at scale for decades. And there are many of these technologies that work across energy systems. So where a company has been involved in hydraulic fracturing for decades, for like a Halliburton, for example, also then is uniquely able to work in geothermal. That technology is very similar. Yes. A lot of these companies have been involved in these kinds of things for a long time. A rig manufacturer like NOV is uniquely suited to help develop elements and pieces for offshore wind. ROVs that our companies develop for subsea, that can also be done in offshore wind. So really, it's about just understanding how the technologies that have been used for traditional hydrocarbon development can be applied across energy systems that will ultimately lead us to lower carbon. And I think the most important thing about energy transition as well is that it is not a transition away from natural gas at all. Natural gas is not only a transition fuel, but a destination fuel that is cleaner. And with these technologies becomes cleaner every day. And we need to rely on natural gas as a cleaner fuel source, because demand is only growing. Demand is not shrinking, demand is growing. Yes. And we need every energy type to be able to answer that demand. And natural gas is a very important part of that.
Yes, no, I loved your answer. And the Houston Strategy Forum is actually hosting a global gas and LNG symposium after the Energy Transition Symposium, so November 11th. And we're going to discuss the same aspects that you brought up and underlined, is that natural gas is a destination fuel. And you look at even today's headlines, natural gas prices are making new highs in the last 24 to 36 months, and LNG prices all over the world, the demand is growing. So it is absolutely important that fuel source. But I also loved your point about, as you described these various companies, on how they're retooling themselves and reinventing themselves to take technologies and understanding that they had and now applying them, where it is more environmentally conscious, but it is more, it helps us with the carbon aspects and carbon management, right? And so now we are able to take, I love that example of hydraulic fracturing, and taking that and looking at wells that can be used for geothermal, right? That is an excellent example of how the oil and gas industry now is able to use its technology which has been used for producing fossil fuels to now producing clean energy. How cool is
Absolutely.
that?
It
Uh,
is cool. And those examples also work really well when we talk to members of Congress, when we talk to
yeah,
individuals in the Biden administration. They need to understand what capabilities these companies do have. These
yes,
companies can not only work in oil and gas, they
yes,
can and they will need to for a long time, but
yes,
they also have other capabilities and should therefore have a seat at the table when we're talking
yes.
about what kind of R&D budgets that they should have access to from the Department of Energy, for example.
Yes, yes. And I love that. And you are the workforce council, right? So I'll focus on that aspect. I remember when we did a strategic conversation with Ms. Stephanie Cox of Wood, who will be a speaker on September 29th. And I discussed this aspect is that if energy transition is the leading edge of technology, right? So as we have we all have kids living in Houston who have grown up in Houston and think the other parts of the country are more sexy, right? They want to move to California or move to Boston.
Right.
And this is a message to all these kids. No, it's Houston is going to be the happening place because the technology boom that we have seen in Silicon Valley, that's been great. But the real technology boom is going to happen right here in Houston, Texas. And how cool it would be for these smart kids to stay back in Texas colleges and work in the Houston booming economy, right? Energy transition will create so much opportunities, and you're the workforce council, so I love that aspect of that.
I could not agree with you more. I think our mayor has done a good job of positioning Houston, as a technology mecca. And there's so many technology incubators and a lot of those things going on. Certainly, a hub for carbon capture. It is exciting to get involved in this industry and to be part of this. It is a great challenge to figure out how we're going to deliver energy to the world.
Yes.
We tend to only look at, well, we sit in America, and so we look around and I can turn my lights on with relative ease. That
Yes.
is not the case for 2 billion people on this planet, and
Yes.
how we deliver energy to them is
Yes.
important.
Yes.
And so it is exciting, and I hope that it will continue to attract not only the young talent, but the diverse talent that we need. This industry definitely needs more women, definitely more young people,
Yes.
people with
Yes.
different diverse backgrounds.
Yes.
And we do quite a bit of work on that at the council, but we have a long way to go. But it is exciting. And so we need to be shouting that from the rooftops for all these kids graduating and wanting
No,
to go to Silicon Valley.
absolutely. We need to get creative and enticing them to stay back here and grow this economy.